Hello, Garnet. Still hammering away at the Neuro Light Practical Guide for Beginners. This is now page 2. The title of this section is Brain Gym, Brain Food, Brain Skills. I say that I attempted to design the Neuro Light following nature. It's designed by nature. The design is based on, to the best of my ability, processes that are the same as the way the brain processes in a natural state. A very fancy concept is called complex adaptive systems. I have a lot of information about that. Complex adaptive systems is any entity that has so many parts and pieces that you just don't really know how many they are. Like the rainforest. I live here in northern Thailand. I'm looking out into the rainforest right now. That's a complex adaptive system. It has so many trees, plants, and animals, nobody knows how many there are. And the other point is that they are all interrelating and interdependent. So there is a mind-boggling exponential possibility for interactions. Okay, there are 3 things about a complex adaptive system, which is also our brain. Our brain is a complex adaptive system. That it is self-regulating. The brain doesn't have a brain. The rainforest doesn't have a boss tree, contrary to the Avatar movie. So this ability to adapt and keep learning and shifting and changing, the kind of the neuroplastic nature of a complex adaptive system is this self-regulation concept. Now self-regulation works just fine as long as 2 other things are there. So you've got self-regulation if there's enough flow of energy through the system so that the demands are matched by that capacity. And the second thing is it has to have an adequate and efficient system of communication and connections. Those are the 3 things. Complex adaptive system, your brain. It's self-regulating. It knows how to do what it wants to do, even though it's an imponderable number of interactions. If it has enough energy, and if the communications and connections are adequate. So that's why these 3 things end up reflected in the 3 things of the Neuro Light. They're the same. The learning, the self-regulation, those are all the brain skills, the 80 of those things. Those are the probability states to help the brain go where you want it to go. But we know that you've got to have those other 2 things, right? Adequate energy and adequate connection and communications. So the brain gym works with the connections and communications aspect. And the brain food, the nasal light, works with supplementing ATP energy for brain functions. So that's why there are 3 aspects to the Neuro Light. There are 2 of them in the box on the light, right? The gym and the skills. And then the brain food has the separate small unit that goes into your nose. So understand the brain food is a separate device that is designed to be compatible or also work on its own with the brain gym and the brain skills. So the brain gym works to build up and maintain your neuroplastic capacity. So it works kind of an exercise. It exercises on a fundamental level and also the things called the brain networks that you'll see. So what's the brain gym for? It's basically exercise for your brain. Just like you go to a gym to exercise your body, it's a sensory gym, if you want, for the brain. Light and sound signaling at a basic level for coordination, flexibility, endurance, and strength. Then you've got the brain food, the nasal light. That's for the energy. So basically, if you put the brain gym together with brain food, what you see is this is how to enhance neuroplastic capacity. Bring it up to where you want it to be as best as you can, and then once you're at a level that you like, you maintain that. So it both builds capacity, maintains capacity. Brain gym with the brain food, they go together beautifully. Then, once you're working at a level that is adequate in exercise and energy, once the neuroplastic capacity is where you want it, then you've got the brain skills. What the brain skills do is they introduce neuroplastic demand for learning. So the brain can begin to adapt, learn, You can educate it using the brain skills. So you see these three things on the complex adaptive system: self-regulation, adequate energy, adequate communication and connection. And those three things in the Neuro Light, brain gym, brain food, brain skills, they're actually the same thing. That's why I say it's designed by nature. So appreciate that even though the brain gym might not be very exciting, if you still are convinced that you've got to be seeing all kinds of amazing things to have an effect, you really haven't ever gone to the gym. Some of the exercises you need to do are very mechanically simple, but they're critical. And they build and interlock together so you can do the complicated skills. I always say, like playing tennis. You want to learn tennis, maybe you've got to spend time in the gym. Why? Because you've lost your coordination, your agility. You aren't flexible enough, you're stiff as a board. You have no cardiovascular conditioning, your aerobic level is low, your endurance is poor, and you're weak. You're going to rip your shoulder girdle, a rotator cuff, the first serve that you try. So you may want to go play tennis, you may want to go into the brain skills, you may even want to have a high level of excitation because you think that's where the juice is. And of course it is juicy. However, do understand that demands and capacities need to be compatible. So brain gym, if there's nothing else, of course I guess you've already got a Neuro Light or you're just bumping into this as exploration, but the brain food, the intranasal light, that upregulation of ATP is just incredible. I think anybody that has low vitality, I think anybody over 40 years old, frankly, should be using it on a regular basis. It gives the brain the food that it loves best, which is light. So, following the index, that's page 2, brain gym, brain food, and brain skills. There we go. Thanks.